Welcome to Recalculating Small Business. Like its award-winning book, Recalculating is dedicated to small business in America. Your hosts are Don Mazzella and Dan Perkins. Don Mazzella is the editor-in-chief of the Small Business Digest. Dan Perkins is a registered investment advisor with 43 years' experience in managing money.
Dan Perkins here, your co-host, along with Don Mazzella of Recalculating for Small Business. Our radio program is dedicated to you, helping the small business owners increase their profits. We draw our name from Recalculating, voted the best small business book of 2017 by the Independent Press. In this book, it features ways to grow your small business. Now, here's Don Mazzella.
My co-host, Dan Perkins, is on assignment. But we have a really interesting guest joining us today. She's Stacey Esptein. She's CEO of Zinc. They have a brand new report out. But first, Stacey, welcome to the program. But more importantly, I'd like you to tell a little bit about Zinc, because I know it's a fascinating company.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's fascinating too, and I'm happy to be on the show. So thank you for having me here today. So we are Zinc, as you said. We are an enterprise communication platform, and it is purpose-built for what we like to call deskless workers. So these are people that are not sitting in front of a desk, not sitting in an office, not staring at a computer screen all day. They are deskless. They are in the field. They might be coming to your house to install your cable TV or to fix your utility pole. They may be helping you at a hotel or healthcare or in a retail store. It's actually, surprisingly, it's 80% of the world's workforce is, quote, deskless, and yet technology has taken a little bit of time to catch up to these neglected workers. So we have built a platform that helps these deskless workers communicate better with their peers and with their management and with experts back at the home office. So when they need an answer or they need to communicate about something or they need information, can very quickly and easily do it on a mobile device with an app that was purpose-built for them.
That's fascinating. Before we do anything else, what made you identify this as an area and allow you to go ahead and create this company?
Well, that's a good question. So my background is enterprise software, so I've been in technology for decades. Most recently, I ran marketing at a company called ServiceMax, and ServiceMax made technology for a similar demographic of worker, specifically for field service technicians. So all those people that are out in white vans driving around trying to fix something. We at ServiceMax made a technology solution that helped schedule them and track parts and track customer contracts and warranties, and basically optimize the process behind managing a large field service organization. That's what we did at ServiceMax. And that, there was a real need for technology to help these workers, and ServiceMax had done a good job helping them with things like scheduling and tracking parts, but there was really no good way for them to communicate. And at the same time, certainly we all have phones. Pretty much everyone in the world has a phone, and everybody's using texting to communicate. So I saw that messaging was a very effective way to communicate, and a lot of these workers are using these consumer apps like texting and WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and iMessage to get their communication in the workforce, but it's not built for enterprises, right? It lacks the security and the compliance and the management capabilities of an enterprise solution. And at the same time, if I'm trying to text someone to get the answer, texting is only as good as my network, right? If I don't have your number in my phone, then and you have the answer, then I can't get to you. Whereas an enterprise solution helps set me up to reach out to product experts or to people that can help me answer the job. So, I think it's a combination of my background in enterprise software and then my coming close and working with that demographic of a one of the sections of the deskless workforce, which is field service.
Wow. But you jumped off the cliff and created your own company.
I did. Yes, I did. I'm barely alive, but I'm surviving. No, it's great. It's something I always wanted to do, and I saw the opportunity and seized the moment, and it's been a wild and great ride.
Okay. Well, this program is all about small business, and I have a lot of questions, but I guess my first one is, you say it with such ease, enterprise, and I had to think about it 4 or 5 times. If I understand what you're really saying is you've created a private network through which people in the field can talk and communicate with the home office, whether they're a lawn doctor or plumbers, etc. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's right. I think when I use the word enterprise, I mean that it's built for companies instead of for consumers.
A company, whether it's a small company or with 10 employees or 1,000 employees, has its own network for which you can talk back and forth in a secured way. Am I correct in that?
Yes, that's pretty much right. When I say enterprise, I mean it's built for company use, right? When you look at your phone, you've got probably lots of different apps that you just use for your own personal use. You've got your iTunes and maybe your phone and your texting and whatever other, maybe a radio app or whatever you're using for personal use. But you might also have a couple things associated with your company. And if you work for a big company, you have a few of them. And if you work for a little company, maybe you don't have any company apps at all. But we are enterprise, meaning we are built for companies.
You say enterprise. I look at it that what you're doing is enabling the service people in the field to come, report that they're there, report that they did the job, and then report that they're on to the next one. Am I correct on that?
Not necessarily. So what I mean by enterprise is that this is built for companies, not for personal use. That's what I mean by the term enterprise. But it's less about checking in and checking out and saying they've done the job. It's more about that ongoing communication or knowledge sharing that happens amongst workers in the field. That when you're in an office, it's easy, right? You look across the cube, you could stand up and go to a conference room, or you're reading your email. But when you are out in the field driving a truck around fixing things, sometimes you need help and you need knowledge that doesn't exist in your own head. So let's take, for example, one of our customers is Dish Networks. I'm assuming you know Dish, the satellite TV company. So I want to get Dish Networks. I want the satellite at my house. You show up. You're going to try to set it up. Well, my wiring is different than probably any other house that technician's ever been at. So inevitably that technician's going to face new challenges that he or she has never seen before. And if they somehow come across something they don't know how to do, or they are looking at an issue they've not experienced before, what are the choices? Well, they can just pack up and say, I'm really sorry, sir, but I don't know how to fix this, so I'm going to have to send somebody on another day. Well, that's terrible for you as a consumer. That makes you unhappy. It's terrible for Dish. They'll have to spend, precious company resources to send somebody on another day. And it's also bad for that technician who doesn't feel great about the job that they're doing and might become disengaged. If that technician has a way to reach out to an expert within the company and say, hey, here's a video, or let's get on a live video call, let me show you this wiring that I've never seen before, and that expert can say, oh, I've seen that before, take this wire, plug it to that, whatever the troubleshooting is, and suddenly that technician is able to solve the problem, then company metrics go up. The time to service for the customer satisfaction, employee engagement, overall costs are lowered, and just giving that that worker in the field the ability to reach out and tap into the knowledge of his peers and of experts in the organization is where a lot of value can be derived. Now, there is also the ability to send out one-to-many communication. So the corporation or the company can say, hey, there's a weather alert coming. I need everybody to come in from the field. I'm not going to send that an email because they'll never read it. So I'm going to send it out through Zinc, and they're going to get a little broadcast that shows that. Or it's a new training procedure, or it's, maybe it's an engaging video from the president of the company that I want everyone to see. These deskless workers, they don't read their email. So if you need to get information to them, or if they need to share information with each other, they should be able to do it in an app that's very similar to the apps that they use in their personal lives, like texting and sharing videos and photos.
That is exciting. But you have a new report, but before you do, I'd like to ask you, is this the future of how they talk about the gig economy, how things are changing, but is this a more interactive workforce like this the future?
Well,
in your opinion?
Yes, absolutely. I think when the iPhone and now the Samsung or the Android phone came out, it really changed how the world communicates with each other. And I don't know about you, but when I need to tell my husband something or my best friend something, I don't call them and leave a message. I don't send them an email. I send them a text. And sometimes it has a picture with it, and sometimes it has a video with it, right? It's the way we all communicate. And yet somehow that hasn't made its way into work life yet. And we just think that the work world has fallen behind the consumer world, and that, yes, the reason we communicate that way is because it's very efficient, right? I can send my husband a quick message. I can tell him a lot with a short video. I know he'll get it quickly. I know he'll see it quickly. I know he'll respond, right? It's just a much more efficient way to communicate, and we believe that we should be able to communicate that way at work too. So, yes, I think this is absolutely the future of how we're going to communicate both on and off the job.
You said you have a video satellite company. Do you also have smaller companies as clients? And ideally, what is your preferred number of employees for each enterprise?
So it really completely runs the gamut. I would say we are probably targeted more at medium enterprises to large enterprises. I think if you're a company of 10 to 20 people, you're not going to struggle if you're on a SMS texting app as your mode of communication. It's pretty easy to create little groups and communicate amongst 20 people. When you start getting up to the 50, 100 person company, and then on to, some of our customers have thousands of employees, then that's just impossible to manage through SMS, texting, or WhatsApp, and that's when the value of the communication really starts to break down. And that's actually the survey that you mentioned, which we did in conjunction with Field Technologies Online. We learned in the survey that 90% of the respondents indicated that real-time communication is either mission critical or very important to their field-based teams. And you can imagine that everybody thinks communication is critical. And yet 23% of them are using consumer messaging apps, which means that they're probably missing out on a lot of the efficiencies that they could gain from an app that's built for companies. One other interesting stat that I thought was interesting, 70% of field-based organizations say their visibility into what's actually going on in the field could use improvement. And you can think about, we talked about the worker in the field that needs help needs to get to a peer, and we solve that problem. We also solve the broadcast problem of I've got a message I need to get to my entire workforce or a group of people. But there's also the value of the fact that now leadership and management has much more visibility into what's actually going on because they're in the group. If it's just a group of me and you and our buddies that whenever we have an issue, we text each other, well, maybe we're going to solve our problems, but our manager has no insight into where we're struggling and no visibility into, like, what are we talking about? How could he be helping us? Or how could, maybe there's a training department that if they just knew that everybody was struggling on the same things, they could create some sort of materials to get to that workforce. So I think it's very interesting that a lot of people see this as a big area of need and importance in the organization, and yet they haven't really taken that step to make an investment in this kind of technology, and I think that's probably going to be changing here in the next few years.
Mm-hmm. Well, two things. I was told by a union a leader that there were a lot of union workers who felt that this was Big Brother starting to really. I'll stop there. That was really the next step towards Big Brother. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean that has come up. Honestly, it comes up more often in a sales cycle than it does when actually the tool gets rolled out. You'd be surprised at how much these workers need and want to connect with each other. First of all, it's a solo job, right? You're disconnected from your peers, and to be able to connect with them and not only help each other, but just even have some sort of engagement with other workers, they end up really liking it. Now, the other point that I'll make is that we do not give companies, we do have analytics. We do not give companies the ability to see the content of the conversations. So even though, just like email, any company has a right to go, I don't know, most companies take away your rights to keep your email private. If they want to go look at your email and read it and you're using company email, then they have the right to do that. This is no different. They would have the right to go look at those conversations, but we don't give them that capability. So what they're more looking at is they're looking at keywords across an aggregate. So across the entire user base, what is everybody talking about? Oh, well, they're talking about, product XYZ seems to be causing everybody trouble. So let's get some better training out about product XYZ. They're not looking at, hey, what did Jim just say to Sally that could get them in trouble? So I think it's a little bit in the detail of the content of messages are only on the aggregate. They're not user to user.
Well, I understand. I'm just, but also my understanding was that you are also able to pinpoint location, and that knowing where.
Yeah, so we don't track location. If I'm a manager, I can't look at a map and see where all my people are. The app has the ability to share location. So if I'm an end user and one of the prominent use cases for us with our customers is somebody needs a part, right? So I'm out at a customer site. I don't have that one part and I need it, but maybe one of my peers nearby needs it. The way it works is you would say, hey, you would probably go to the part request group and you would say, hey, I'm looking for part XYZ. Does anybody have it? Here's my location. And the end user would share their location. Location is only available if it is shared by the end user. It's not tracked. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hey, I'm only asking questions that have been thrown at me in the past on various things.
Those are fair questions.
What we try to do, but also the other thing that was thrown at me recently was the fact that these are also vulnerabilities in terms of security of the system, etc. How do you answer that question?
We are SOC 2 compliant. We are HIPAA compliant. We are trustee compliant. It's always interesting to me that the companies that want to, do security reviews and check out the security of our system, and yet a good majority of their workforce is using SMS texting or WhatsApp, which is owned by Facebook, which basically means Facebook owns your data. I mean, those consumer apps are far less secure and far less compliant than an enterprise app like Zinc. In fact, one of the solid reasons for going with something like Zinc is that it is secure, it is compliant, it is encrypted. You can feel good that your employees' communication is held within a private and secure solution versus like, oh, well, we created these WhatsApp groups or these texting groups, and now half those guys don't even work for us anymore, but who, they're still in the groups because it was nobody's responsibility to take them out of the groups. Whereas with Zinc, you would have an admin, you could sync it to your Active Directory so that when somebody leaves the company, they are automatically taken out of all of those communications. So security and encryption are reasons to go with something like Zinc versus to shy away from it.
We're talking with Stacey Esptein. Is it Epstein or Epstein?
It's Epstein, but I'll answer to whatever.
No, I want to make sure we do it right. So, she's a CEO of Zinc, which is an enterprise app that is exciting. Stacey, we have a few minutes left, and I'd like you to kind of summarize what your app does, what your system does, because I find it fascinating, and I think it is the future, like you do. So our audience gets a better idea of. Tell them what you've said, and then tell them again, because this is radio.
Problem. So we connect deskless or field-based workers with the tribal knowledge of their entire organization in real time, and we do that through one all-mode communication app. By mode, I mean any mode of communication that you could do on a phone, you can do within Zinc. So texting, voice, video, conference calling, group texting, sharing location, sharing content. We have live push-to-talk, walkie-talkie functionality. Basically, any way that you could communicate, you can do it within Zinc, and it really helps connect workers with the knowledge and information they need to help them do a better job in real time.
Stacey, what are your immediate plans for the future for your company?
Well, we're gearing up for a big Q4. We're bringing on lots of new enterprise clients, and we're adding more and more functionality every day. We're about to launch something called hotline groups, where you could basically you could have experts staff a group within Zinc so that, let's say I have a question about the black and white product, I could go straight to the black and white group and I would know that I was going to get my question answered quickly. So really just innovating directly for the needs of the deskless workforce in communication. We're also building lots of integrations to other systems, like work order management systems, where you could have a contextual conversation. You could be in a work order and then you need to have a conversation with someone, and that conversation would remain connected to that work order. So a lot of product innovation for this space, and hopefully continued growth.
And your website for people and how people can reach you?
Yeah, it's www.zinkit. So Zinc, ZINC.IT, Zinkit. And there's some demos on the site and some videos if you wanted to check out the product. If you want to reach me directly, you can find me on LinkedIn. I am Stacey Esptein, STACEYEPSTEIN.
Stacey, it's been fascinating. I guess one last question. Where do you see the future of products like yours? Do you see more integration? Do you see what do you see happening?
Yeah, well, I think The proliferation of mobile devices in our world, where pretty much everybody has a phone or some sort of device in their tablet, really creates an opportunity. And now that if you leverage something like Zinc, you've got a digital connection to every employee that you never had before. I mean, you think about a hotel worker who shows up, a house cleaner who comes and cleans the room and leaves and gets her paycheck, but she doesn't have probably much connection to the employee to the company other than her manager. Well, now if she's on Zinc and she's communicating with her manager and she's getting updates and she's communicating with her peers and with the front desk, she's really more connected and engaged. And there's a lot of other things that we can now help connect that worker to, and whether it's HR systems, payroll systems, task management systems, any type of data and analytics system to look at, well, what is the best way to do the job? There's just a huge opportunity to leverage that bridge to the deskless worker that we've created by just adding more technology to it.
Stacey, I think you're in the forefront of this, and it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great time.
We've been talking with Stacey Esptein. A link to her website will be on recalculating.biz tonight, where you can hear this and every other past and future program. And you can also tell us guests you'd like to hear. Stacey, thank you so much for an illuminating time together.
Thank you.
Dan Perkins here with your recalculating.biz small business tip of the day. So you're thinking about starting a new business. How much money will you need? Sometimes starting a small business can be overwhelming. Can you afford to start your business? Do you even know how much money it will take? So here's your recalculating small business tip of the day. Before you start your business, you need to figure out what it will cost you to run your household. How much money will you need to pay your current expenses? If you don't have a formal budget, then start one. Look in your checkbook for the last 2 years and see how much you spent. But just as important, where did you spend it? Next, see what can go. Can you reduce your out-of-pocket expense? I suggest to startups that they have at least 9 months worth of living expenses in the bank or brokerage account. Knowing you've got the money to live is one less thing to worry about. This has been your Recalculating Small Business Tip of the Day. I'm Dan Perkins.
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com.
Dan Perkins here from recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day. How is your vision? I'm not talking about your eyesight, but rather, can you see the changes coming in your business or industry? The ability to see what's coming can give you an edge over your competition. Industry magazines can be a great help to see changes coming to your business. You get the magazines because you belong to a group. Use the resource of your group or association to keep yourself current. You're paying for it anyway, why not use this resource? If you keep yourself abreast of what's happening, you will be able to make the changes to enhance your opportunity to grow your business. So here's your recalculating.biz small business tip of the day. The next time you get one of those membership magazines in the mail, sit down and read it cover to cover. You just might uncover a new opportunity. I'm Dan Perkins from recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day.
Marcus Lemonis, J.D. Powers, and John Scully, and 100 other presidents and experts contributed to Recalculating the book. Why did all these people agree to contribute to the book? I'm Don Mazzella, and I'm the editorial director of Small Business Digest. And for 20 years, we have been offering small business leaders information and data to increase profits. Recalculating the book was named the best small business book by the Independent Press Association. Whether you need help with marketing, staffing, finance, operations, technology, or many other subjects. They're all here in Recalculating the Book. They're now available at Amazon at a reduced cost. We've also created the radio program Recalculating on recalculating.biz.
Dan Perkins here from recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day. Are you protecting yourself against lazy lawsuits? You may be asking, what is a lazy lawsuit? This is a lawsuit because you have not been paying attention to the details. It used to be that you could do business on a handshake, but unfortunately, not anymore. Handshakes don't have any details, so both parties have to remember the same things for the handshake to work. The problem enters in when memories fail, and it turns into he said and she said. Here is the Recalculating Small Business tip of the day. Work with the client in developing a contract. That way your customer will be putting in writing what he expects you to do and when the job is to be completed. You will know what and when is expected of you. It may take a little extra time, but it will save you both time and money. I'm Dan Perkins from recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day. Dan Perkins here from recalculating.biz with your featured book. I want to tell you about a recent interview I had with Bob Bethel, a turnaround specialist with lots of success in small business. Bob's new book is Strengthen Your Business, Fail-Proof Strategies for Small Business. He tells us of his life successes and failures that have made him and his clients so successful. Over the years, Bob has brought 77 companies back from the brink and changed them into thriving, profitable businesses. His energy is amazing, and at 74, he proves that you can still have a great deal to give others if you just try. His suggestions are easy to understand and very helpful. One insight struck me was that most companies do not have a plan. The old Chinese proverb says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there, is true today. Bob Bethel's book, Strengthen Your Business, can be found at Amazon.com or can be ordered at your local bookstore. This has been Dan Perkins with your Recalculating.biz featured book. Dan Perkins here from Recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day. Will this be your summer to rediscover the red, white, and blue of America? American small business is back and growing again. We can say that the American people feel good about the red, white, and blue. If you own a small business, you should be proud of what you've accomplished. When you're out looking for new business, take some time to rediscover your past. When you drive into a new town, go to a gas station that's the cleanest and brightest and ask the station owner, what should I be seeing during my visit to your town? Make your business calls, but before you move on, go see what makes this town and its people so special. The next time you come through to make a call on that prospect, tell them what you found out about his town. The red, white, and blue of America may bring you great rewards in many ways if you'll just look for them. I'm Dan Perkins from Recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day.
My co-host, Dan Perkins, is on assignment, but we are about to talk with Tom Wheelwright. He's here to talk about the 5 urgent small business tax planning decisions for 2018. And based on everything I've heard, we really got to think about it. Tom, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, Don. It's good to be back.
Tom, first off, tell us a little bit about yourself for our audience.
Well, thanks. So I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, heart of Mormonism, and spent 2 years as a Mormon missionary in Paris, France, teaching Mormonism to Catholics. That was interesting. And I have a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Utah in accounting and a Master's of Tax from the University of Texas in Austin. I spent 8 years in Big Four accounting firms, including 3 years in the National Tax Department at Ernst & Young, 4 years as the in-house tax advisor for a Fortune 500 company, 14 years as an adjunct professor at Arizona State University in their Masters of Tax program, and for the last 25 years I've been running a number of different CPA firms. So that's what I do, and I travel the world, and the book I wrote that I think you're familiar with is Tax-Free Wealth, which we just released, second edition for the new tax law.
Tell us the title of the book again.
Tax-Free Wealth,
This has been a really changeable year in terms of taxes, and many small businesses don't really realize just how much has changed. So you're here to tell us some of the 5 things you think are important. And all I'm going to do is turn it over to you and let you talk.
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate that. So, yeah, we haven't had a massive tax change like this since I was in Washington, D.C. in 1986 under Ronald Reagan. So that was the last major tax reform. And this one is, the difference is that the people who win in this one are different than the people who won in 1986. Winners this time are primarily a lot of business and real estate. I mean, those are the 2 big winners. So if you're a real estate investor or want to be, it's a big win. And if you are a business owner, big or small, I think it's a big win. So there are some really major tax benefits. I think the most obvious one that people don't actually think about is we got these new bonus depreciation rules. And what depreciation, of course, is I think most people understand is the wear and tear on your equipment, right? And so if you use equipment in business, and that includes a car, then the wear and tear, you get a deduction every year. Well, what changed is now that deduction, particularly for cars, is really accelerated. So first of all, they increased the rate of the depreciation, but they also added this bonus. And what the bonus depreciation means is that that first year you buy a car, just a regular passenger car, in addition to your regular depreciation, you're going to get a bonus of $10,000 of deduction, based on 100% use of your car in business. So I think the car is a big deal. It's especially big if you bought an SUV that's a full-sized SUV or a truck, because those you get to deduct entirely. So this is a huge tax benefit. So anybody's thinking about buying a car between now and the end of the year might think about if I can get this to be a business deduction, then I can write off the entire price of the car, even if I don't put any money down, and the bank lends me all the money. So I think that's a big one. And part of that is the home office. So most people don't realize, they think home office, that's a scary expense and the IRS doesn't like it. And I go, but there's not that much deduction anyway, right? I already get my interest and my taxes on my home. So what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is if you have a business, your first drive of the day is called a commute by the IRS. And your last drive of the day home is also called a commute. And commutes are not deductible, so they don't increase your percentage of business use. So when we talk about this bonus depreciation, the percentage of business use is a big deal. If I only use my car 50% for business, I only get 50% of the depreciation deduction. If I use it 100%, I get 100% of the depreciation deduction. So if you're thinking, I'm buying a $60,000 SUV this year, the difference is a $30,000 deduction or a $60,000 deduction. Well, if you have a home office, your commute's 20 feet. And it's 20 feet at the beginning of the day when you go to your home office, and it's 20 feet at the end of the day after you come back and you go to your home office and you do your administrative work. And so what happens is that for most people, a home office deduction will increase their deduction for their car by anywhere from 30 to 50%. So that's a decision right there, is to establishing that home office. And if you're going to, even if you're not buying a new car, even if you're just taking your old car and you're using it, it's a much bigger tax deduction, much bigger tax break if you have a home office.
Tom, let me break in here. I don't quite understand. They changed the home office so that, how did they do that? I'm sorry if I appear somewhat puzzled, because I am.
No worries. So they didn't change anything in the home office. What they changed is how much you can depreciate of your car. But what most people don't realize is that the percentage of the you get this depreciation deduction. So let's say you went out and buy a new SUV for $60,000, okay? And let's say that if you include your commute, that's your first trip out of the day, even if it's to a client, that first trip out of the day for your business is a commute. So when you include that commute, you're only 50% business use of your car because the commute's personal, okay? So let's say the commute is the only personal use you have, and that the rest of the day you're going from customer to customer or business to business, or you're using it pretty much for business the rest of the time. So what that means is that you only get to deduct 50% of that bonus depreciation, that $60,000 that you paid for that SUV. But if you had a home office, that commute now is business. So if you have a home office, now instead of 50% deductible, so a $30,000 deduction, you're 100% deductible, or $60,000. So it can literally double the deduction you get for your business car if you have a home office.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Let's go on to another one, Tom.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. So here's another one. Here's one that nobody's talking about. It's a huge deal for anybody who has inventory in their business. So that includes if you sell inventory, if you sell on Amazon, okay, there's a lot of people selling on Amazon. You're selling on eBay. You're a drugstore. You're a restaurant. Any of these people, all of these businesses have inventory. Well, historically, we don't get to deduct our inventory until we sell it, which means at the end of the year, we may have $300,000 of inventory on hand, and we're not going to deduct it until we actually sell it the following year. So what that means is we've spent $300,000 in cash we're not getting a deduction for. The 2017 Tax Act changed that so that if you choose and if your items in your inventory are under $2,500 each, you can deduct the inventory when you buy it. So let me give you an example of just how important this is. Let's say that you own a drugstore. Typically, for a pharmacy, 99% of their drugs, and I deal with a lot of pharmacists, and 99% of their drugs cost less than $2,500 per bottle, okay? It's pretty rare that something's more than $2,500, which means that let's say that they had, at the end of 2017, they had $300,000 of inventory on their books. That means in 2018, if they prepare their tax return properly and they make the proper elections, they can deduct an additional $300,000 off of their taxable income. So that means if their income, let's say their net income for the year is $400,000 normally, this year it's going to be $100,000 because they're going to get that $300,000 deduction for inventory. And that's something that very few people understand, and I get a lot of questions on it. But I think my reading is I think the law is very clear that that's what you get to do. So it's a huge tax benefit.
That is, I had not heard that at all. That is really exciting. But don't you catch up next year? I mean, if you deduct it this year, you don't have it next year.
Well, that's true, but you're going to buy more next year. So if you're growing, you're always going to get a better tax benefit if you deduct it currently. If you're shrinking, then you're right, it catches up to you. But if you're staying even or you're growing, the worst that can happen is that next year you'll be the same place you were as if you hadn't deducted it in 2017 because in 2018. Because let's say, for example, that your inventory levels stay consistent. So At the end of 2017, you had $300,000 of inventory. And at the end of 2018, you had $300,000 of inventory. And at the end of 2019, you have $300,000 of inventory. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to keep buying inventory. And so for 2018, you're going to get a big deduction for $300,000. For 2019, you're going to get the same deduction you would have gotten anyway because your inventory stays the same. You buy, you sell, you buy, you sell. So you end up, in most cases, now you're right, you always need to sit down with your accountant and your tax advisor and walk through this and make sure that the numbers work for you, because you can get caught if you are actually decreasing the amount of inventory that you have on hand at the end of the year. So that's a really good point. But do make sure that you look at the numbers. But for most people with inventory, they're expanding, they're not contracting right now. So they're going to be better off deducting it right now.
Yeah. Why do I hear particularly from the Democratic side, that this tax deal is terrible for the American people?
Because that serves their interest. I mean, there are very few people. There are very few people who get hurt by this bill. That is, that pay more tax under this bill. There are a few. I mean, for example, if you had, let's say you're single, and you had $13,000 of itemized deductions, okay, and that was it. You probably are going to pay more because you're going to get a $12,000. You're still going to have that $13,000 because you get $12,000 deduction, but you lose your personal exemption. So that person with the $13,000, they lose their personal exemption, so they're actually worse off. So there are a few, but it's really rare. It's really rare. Most people, even employees, just even your run-of-the-mill, your average employee, are going to be better off because the rates went down and the standard deduction went up.
Oh, I agree with you. It's just I'm always amazed. You know what they say about the blind men, going around the elephant. Each person picks a different part of the elephant. Anyway,
that's true.
But now, Tom, you have a couple of other that you'd like to mention.
Well,
and I don't want to.
For sure.
I don't want to stop you.
No, I appreciate that. So a big one is looking at your business owner. You have to decide, how do I want to be taxed? And I know that seems like an odd decision that you have to make, but you really have to make that decision. Do I want to be taxed as what we call a pass-through? So a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or an S corporation, where the tax isn't paid at the entity level. It's not paid by the business. It's paid by me and my personal return. Or do I want to change? Because most small business owners are taxed as pass-throughs. Or do I want to be taxed as a corporation, a C corporation? Now that we have a lower tax rate, remember, we went from a 35% corporate tax rate to a 21% corporate tax rate. It's a huge drop. So people have to think, well, maybe I should be a corporation now. Maybe I should be taxed as a corporation. Well, maybe you should. But remember that when you are taxed as a corporation, any money you take out either going to be taxed as wages to you. You either have to take it out as wages, which means you're paying Medicare, Social Security taxes on it, or it's going to be a dividend, in which case you're going to pay the capital gains tax on it. So you have a double taxation in the C corporation. On the other hand, if you're going to put all your money back into your business, then it may make sense to be a C corporation. On the other hand, I know this is complicated, but this is a big decision to make. On the other hand, the pass-through entities, most of them are going to get this new 20% deduction, which gives you an effective rate, maximum effective rate of about 30%. What that means is that instead of being taxed on 100% of your net income from your business, the idea is that you'll only be taxed on 80% of your net income from your business. And the idea behind that was to give the small business some of the tax benefits that the big businesses got with the reduction in their rates. The 20% deduction is very complicated, okay? So this is something you want to sit down with your tax advisor on and walk through it. Let me give you some examples. People like me, accountants, we don't get it unless our income combined with our spouse is under $315,000 or $157,500 if we're single. So if you have an accounting firm, partners in an accounting firm or doctors or lawyers, and they make, say, or dentists, they have a good year, they're making $500,000, they're not going to get that 20% deduction unless they do some things between now and the end of the year to reduce their income to that $315,000 level. So this is a planning opportunity. In order to get that 20% deduction, there are some things you could do. For example, you might not normally put money away into a pension plan, but you might decide, oh, look, if I put money into a pension plan, I could get my income down to $315,000. That's where you start planning on how do I get my income? How do I make sure I get the most of that 20% deduction? I'll give you one more on the 20%. The other people that it doesn't apply to if they make too much money are independent contractors. So, for example, a plumber, an IT guy, an electrician, go out and they're independent contractors. And basically they render services. It's all about, who they are. Well, they also have those income limits. However, some of these people are employees. So let's say that they're making $100,000 a year. You're making $100,000 a year as a plumber, as an employee. You're going to pay tax on $100,000. But if you were an independent contractor and made $100,000 a year as a plumber, you'd get a 20% deduction off of your taxes. So you'd actually reduce your taxes by at least 20% simply by being an independent contractor. So, these are a lot of decisions. These are a lot of things to be thinking about between now and the end of the year.
You're so right. It's just, you sit here and here in the Northeast, our governor here in New Jersey said this is such a terrible deal for ordinary people. Yet it seems to me that for the small business owner, this tax change is actually beneficial. On the whole, what do you say?
Oh, I think for the small business owner or the real estate investor, I think this is a huge. You're going to see huge reductions in your tax bill this year if you're a small business owner. You should, okay, with the right planning, with the right advice, you should absolutely see big tax benefits. The average employee, especially there in New Jersey, who got a deduction for their state income tax, and they're not getting that deduction this year, that they could actually end up with a higher tax bill. But that's the average employee. That's not the small business owner. The small business owner is going to see some benefits. If you pay taxes, by the way, as a business, so if it's your business that's paying the taxes, the state income taxes. So let's say you decide that you want to be a corporation and tax as a corporation. Well, those state income taxes that the corporation pays are deductible to the corporation. That reduction, that limit of $10,000 only applies to individuals. It doesn't apply to corporations.
So it may be that this year you may want to take it as a corporate tax.
You might. You might decide, look, if I take that and add to the fact that I'm putting a lot of my money back into my business anyway, seriously want to consider changing the way I'm taxed in my business from a pass-through to a C corporation to a corporate entity, because I'm going to get that tax write-off, and income taxes are big back east, so that's a big deal.
We're talking to Tom Wheelwright. Tom, your website and how people can reach you?
Website is wealthability, wealthability.com. Wealthability.com.
Spell it out.
And that is the best way to reach it. It's wealth, WEALTHABILITY. Wealth ability, your ability to create wealth. That's what we're about.
Isn't that what this country's about?
Well, we used to be. I'm not always sure that's what we're about anymore, but that sure seems. I always thought that was the American dream. So it was when I was growing up.
It was. Tom, in the I guess the 2 minutes we have left, well, what advice would you give a small business owner in 2 minutes that you think that they should know?
Number one, I would say make sure that your tax advisor has read this new law, understands this new law, and understands your business, because your tax advisor will have a bigger impact on your wealth than any other single person other than your spouse. So that tax advisor, if you're thinking about should I change, maybe find somebody who's a little more sophisticated, who has a better understanding of the new law. This would be the time to do it, because you want to do it before the end of the year so that you can make those changes. That's the first thing. The second of all is that the tax advisor is the one, if you ever did get audited, it's your tax advisor who should handle that audit, not you. They're the ones who understand the law. They should be doing that. You should not have to worry about that. There you go. My 2 pieces of advice for the day.
Well, thank you. We were talking with Tom Wheelwright. A link to his website will be on recalculating.biz tonight, where you can hear this and every other past and future recalculating program. And you can also, by the way, tell us who you'd like to hear on this program. Tom, it's always a pleasure having you on. You always teach us something new. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Dan Perkins here with your recalculating.biz small business tip of the day. So you're thinking about starting a new business. How much money will you need? Sometimes starting a small business can be overwhelming. Can you afford to start your business? Do you even know how much money it will take? So here's your recalculating small business tip of the day. Before you start your business, you need to figure out what it will cost you to run your household. How much money will you need to pay your current expenses? If you don't have a formal budget, then start one. Look in your checkbook for the last 2 years and see how much you spent. But just as important, where did you spend it? Next, see what can go. Can you reduce your out-of-pocket expense? I suggest to startups that they have at least 9 months worth of living expenses in the bank or brokerage account. Knowing you've got the money to live is one less thing to worry about. This has been your Recalculating Small Business Tip of the Day. I'm Dan Perkins.
Marcus Lemonis, J.D. Powers, and John Scully, and 100 other presidents and experts contributed to Recalculating the book. Why did all these people agree to contribute to the book? I'm Don Mazzella, and I'm the editorial director of Small Business Digest. And for 20 years, we have been offering small business leaders information and data to increase profits. Recalculating the book was named the best small business book by the Independent Press Association. Whether you need help with marketing, staffing, finance, operations, technology, or many other subjects, they're all here in Recalculating the book. They're now available at Amazon at a reduced cost. We've also created the radio program Recalculating on recalculating.biz.
Dan Perkins here with your Recalculating.biz small business tip of the day. Are you having trouble growing your business? Do you have a mentor? Sometimes running a small business can be overwhelming. You need a mentor. A business mentor can help you in many facets of your business. So here's your Recalculating.biz small business tip of the day. The SBA has a free program called SCORE. These individuals give of their time and share their experiences to create the next generation of small business owners who help grow the American economy. SCORE is the nation's largest network of volunteer expert business mentors. It provides free and confidential business consulting. These volunteers will work with individuals on starting a business, solving business problems, and growing a business. Visit www.score.org and you may just hit a home run. This has been your Recalculating Small Business Tip of the Day. I'm Dan Perkins.
Thank you for joining us on Recalculating. We hope the information you received on today's episode was helpful to you in starting and growing your business. Please go to our website, recalculating.biz, to contact us, to listen to past shows, and see special offers. Until next time, remember, if you grow, we grow. Join us next week for more helpful ideas to make your business a great success. Recalculating, a program designed to help you be successful.